Greetings and welcome to STEM Inspired. Today's special guest is Lorenzo Ramirez. He is the Director of Allies in STEM at California Lutheran University. Listen and be inspired.
My name's Lorenzo Ramirez
And where do you work?
at California Lutheran University.
And what do you do there?
I'm the director of a new program called Allies in STEM.
And what does that involve?
It's actually a two-part program, an external face as well as an internal face, where basically to the people in Ventura County, we hold a yearly 3-week summer program called the STEM Academy for high school students, community college students, and then of course some CLU students that will be enrolling in the fall to participate in hands-on activities, do some really fun science, evening activities, field trips, and just getting to know each other and hanging out with other science nerds.
When you were younger, what did you dream of becoming?
First and foremost, I wanted to become a detective. And it was a little bit later, though, that I really, however, found my passion. I knew as a kid I loved animals, but it wasn't until I started being able to go to work with my dad at the dairy farm where I became obsessed with these humongous creatures that gave us milk. I didn't really understand more than what my dad did with regards to cows until it was at one of the yearly celebrations where they had all the employees and they actually brought in some of the veterinarians that work with the cows, and I saw that they had this humongous piece of rope and I was like, what is this? Was this tied around some humongous cow's neck? And they said, no, actually, this came out of the cow. It ate it. And so this is from other things in the stomach and the processing of this rope in the cow's digestive system that caused this enlargement of this humongous piece of, like, rope. I didn't know how else to describe how large it was, but it got me interested in saying, oh, there are people who take care of these animals in a setting kind of like what my doctor did. So I knew, what is it that they did? And my dad encouraged me to go talk to these strange men that were wearing boots and gloves and such, and they said, we're veterinarians. We happen to work with cows.
Do you have any stories about school in particular that you would like to share?
So it was freshman year. I was in college prep science classes, didn't think anything of it, but my honors geometry teacher said, hey, did you know we also have an honors science class? I was not aware, but that teacher said, hey, I'll talk to your regular science teacher and see what he thinks about placing you in the honors science class. One, that was the first time someone had advocated for me. I had a long history of, because of having a Hispanic last name, constantly being placed in English language development classes, even after regularly being tested out each year.
Oh my
So
goodness.
each year I ended up being placed in another similar class based off of my last name. So it was the first memory that I have of a teacher really advocating for me, and especially in the sciences, which has now become, my passion. And I remember it was around Halloween when I got placed in her class, and they had this humongous pumpkin. They had carved it. We really didn't know what was going on, but she ended up adding some chemicals. All of a sudden, the pumpkin started squirting out what we now know as elephant toothpaste, a very common activity. She then took another pumpkin. We were expecting something very similar. This one caught on fire.
So what did you graduate with?
So in college, I actually I started off as an engineer. I had really been supported by my math and physics teachers to say, hey, you're pretty good at this. You definitely need some more experience. Not everything comes to you naturally, but you could definitely, if you want to become an engineer, that's possible. So I had a college support program named Bright Prospect that served low-income students in the Inland Empire or San Bernardino County, and they helped us get exposed to all these schools. For me, the positive side was that this program also understood that financial aid is critical to whether a student's not only going to succeed at that school but graduate.
So, what do you wish you had known before starting your career?
You're going to change your mind a lot, and that you're going, just from the natural progression of life, you're going to change your career several times. It's not saying anything negative about you as a person or you as a skilled individual. And that was something hard for me to understand. I thought, I'm going to go to school and I'm going to come out of it knowing what I want to do, knowing what exactly the next step is, and I would be able to see 5, 10 years into the future of where I would be working, teaching, etc. But that's not true. At every step of the game, the question remained, what am I going to do? What am I going to be when I grow up?
Yeah.
And honestly, I've come to understand and love that unknown piece, because you have no idea where you're going to go, but what's important is the lives of the people you touch along the way. Those interconnections, those are unique. Those are what is going to give you your experience, and honestly, that's what has helped me become closer to my students, having worked with students in different capacities, even though it wasn't my job at times.
Which is, what advice would you give your younger self knowing those things?
Be patient.
So, who is or has been the greatest influence in your life?
I would say it was the counselors at Bright Prospect. I am still in contact with them at every step of the way. But I remember not only did they help me apply to graduate school in reviewing essays and such, at the emotional, social level, being able to ask questions that I wasn't able to ask of my parents. And
How important has mentorship been in your career?
vastly important, and having a lack of mentorship has made it clear the significant value that those who have been important in my trajectory, I couldn't have done it without them.
Have you experienced barriers, either real or perceived, in your STEM career?
Yes. I mean, as a kid in high school, my parents, my dad at one point had to stop working on the dairy farm for a while, and so during that time, I didn't know if college was going to be possible. I didn't know financial aid or scholarships really existed and how they worked. So I remember going to a paintball park and picking up cans and bottles, and that's how we paid for rent, but that's also how we saved money. And it was a struggle. It brought in fears, but that was assuaged by my junior year when I started having these teachers saying, hey, this is how it works. Hey, you are going to qualify for this. Don't worry, we will help you. We care about you. Some of the viewpoints that some of the professors might have had about students of color. And so I did run into an advisor who told me to quit, and said it with regards to my ethnicity, said it with regards to what she believed was my skill level, and instead of looking at what I had actually accomplished in my 2 years at the graduate school already, I realized, oh no, like, what am I going to do? This person thinks I should quit. So I went and sought out my mentor, who did give me that opportunity to mentor others, and the chair of my program reassured me that I was on track. And they, for lack of a better word, they stood up for me, but also encouraged me to develop, that thick skin, because things aren't always easy for students who come from underserved communities.
Mm-hmm. Why is it important to fill the STEM profession with diverse individuals?
Sciences, and especially fields that claim to touch human medicine or human lives, they have to diversify. And at the very basic level, diversify in thought and openness. Well, how do you get that openness and thought? Well, you bring people with different perspectives.